Trend I've seen in my comments for a very long time is people questioning which animation software is the best. This can range from beginners who are interested in animation, people looking to invest in a new app, or of course those commenters who just want to debate like it's a console war or something. Today I wanted to add my input by trying out every major animation app on the iPad and ranking them. Of course, this will be a little bit biased, I'll admit. I have my own use case for animation, and the same will apply for you. The best animation app is always what fits your use case, but I'll try my best to be totally fair ranking all these apps. So I'll go through the pros, the cons of each app, and try to be as fair as possible. And I'll also leave chapters in the video so you can jump to my thoughts on different applications. So what will be the judging criteria for all of these animations? Well, we have a few. It will be 1, how's the drawing experience? 2, do I need to jump into other applications to use this application efficiently? And 3, how many quality of life features do I have for the animation? And you know what? We'll also judge the look and feel of the program, because a lot of these programs for the tablet are just like really taking up too much space on a small screen. So we're gonna give you some points if you can make a good compact animation app too. But first we'll start off with a group of several apps which are actually painting applications with animation suites. So when I say painting applications where you can animate, what do I mean? Well, I'm referring to applications like Procreate or Adobe Fresco where you primarily draw and paint, but you have the ability to do animation. So of these painting applications, we have 5 applications in this category, which will be Procreate, Adobe Fresco, Clip Studio Paint's new simple mode can also animate, that was recently added, and then we also have Medibang and ibispaint. So we're gonna start off strong with Procreate. And the way animation works in Procreate, and really all of these painting applications where you can animate, you're essentially just drawing on layers, and those layers will count as your animation frames. The way they spice this up in Procreate is that instead of just drawing on a single layer and that being your frame, instead you can make layer groups that will count as one whole frame in Procreate. So essentially you don't have animation layers where you can have a lot of different parts moving at different timings like you can in a regular animation app, but you can put a whole lot into one drawing and make a whole painting every frame if you really wanted to in Procreate. So that is one thing that works pretty well for it. And aside from that, something that this animation part of Procreate has that most painting apps don't have is that you can also add frame duration, which is basically how long your frame will last based off your FPS. So let's say if we're playing at 24 FPS and we have a frame that's a duration of 2, it will last 2 out of the 24 frames, which are the 24 drawings that your animation app will play in a second. Procreate will allow you to change the duration of how long these frames last. You could make something last a full 24 frames, which means one image would take up a full second if you were playing in 24 FPS. And most of these other apps won't let you do that. So I think that's definitely an advantage. But aside from that, Procreate is also really good just because, of course, it's Procreate. It's already a really robust drawing application. So it's just good to draw in here. We actually have quick line for shapes, which we don't have in apps like Procreate Dreams yet, which actually is a full animation app. And speaking of, Procreate has compatibility, direct compatibility with Procreate Dreams. So that's something that also makes it a little bit better. I think Procreate can work really well for storyboarding and then perhaps bringing your animations over to Procreate Dreams. Now, some cons for Procreate are that you can't move your background independently from your animation. So you can set a background layer in Procreate, but then you can't animate anything on that background layer because it's not actually an animation, it's just a picture. So that's a little limiting. And then aside from that, It's just not an animation app with animation layers. So that's the only cons I have for Procreate. Before we get to ranking the next app, I would like to take a second to thank the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Skillshare is a platform where people of all skill levels can take self-paced classes to empower their hobby or creative passion. On Skillshare, classes are taught by creative professionals with a variety of topics such as animation, art, graphic design, and more. This month, I joined my first class, Animate Your Imagination, taught by professional animator and fellow YouTuber Tonika Pentoja. I hope I'm saying that right. In this class, I learned more about how professional storyboards are created and how they evolve into animated storyboards called animatics. What stuck out to me about this class was the idea of creating log lines, which are simple sentences that lay out your story before you even start creating a storyboard. My logline helped me to develop an interesting animatic for my self-paced assignment. If you're looking to level up your creative process, look no further. The first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Moving on to Adobe Fresco. Adobe Fresco actually works a little bit special compared to most of these drawing apps with animation. Now I know I just said that with all of them, you're just working on drawing layers and they basically just function as your frames. And Adobe Fresco does do that, but instead in Adobe Fresco, your drawing layers function as animation layers, which means you can independently move different parts of your character or different characters on every drawing layer in Adobe Fresco. And additionally to that, they also have keyframing. Like you can draw a path and Fresco will just automatically play that path for you. So it's like you kind of have tweening in Adobe Fresco, but it's not fully there. And it's just because everything is kind of like handheld and it does it for you. So you can't really customize your movement, your keyframing after you make a movement. So it's a little too simple. But aside from that, Fresco also has a really good drawing experience, just like Procreate did. It has vector brushes, good playback performance, and a pretty good UI. The cons I would say are that animation layers will loop out of sync if they aren't the same length. So let's say if one of my drawing layers has 24 frames, right? And my other drawing layer only has 12 frames. If I play my animation, my second layer that only has 12 frames, once it reaches its 12th frame, if I didn't make a additional 12 empty frames, it will just start to loop out of sync as if it's on a different timeline in my playback, which is very weird behavior. I haven't seen that in any animation app. It's kind of like every drawing layer has its own timeline that will play back separately. But the most annoying con for Adobe Fresco by far is that it does not have frame duration. So despite them making the drawing layers work like animation layers, we have no frame duration. So we can't extend anything to last a longer amount of time unless we duplicate it. And that really just can get very tedious if you have to keep duplicating and a frame for it to last a longer amount of time. Like imagine if you wanted something to last 24 frames, you would need to duplicate it 24 times in Adobe Fresco. So despite it having animation layers, Adobe Fresco really still isn't that good to use for longer projects because the more you do in a single project, the more frustrating it will get. So now that we have two of these done, why don't we go ahead and rank them? I think I'm going to put these both in F tier, only because we're still gonna rank these against animation applications and they just don't really compete. I think they're both pretty good if you want to use them as storyboarding applications, but we're gonna go ahead and throw these in F tier. But I think I'll throw Procreate ahead of Adobe Fresco. And the only reason I say that is because Fresco is theoretically better than Procreate for animation because you have actual animation layers. But because they don't have that duration feature, the longer your animation goes for, the more of a hassle it becomes to animate in this program. You gotta take it out of Adobe Fresco. Now moving on, we also have Medibang. So I'm gonna jump over into Medibang. Okay, here I am in Medibang, and I can't find the animation feature. And you know what? They gave me an ad, and I don't think it's gonna be that good anyway. I'll be fair. I'll throw it an F. Let's move on to ibispaint. Same thing. Ads. Can't find it. Atrocious UI, by the way. I hate the user interface. F it goes. Okay, last but not least for this tier, we have Clip Studio Paint's Simple Mode. So Clip Studio Paint's Simple Mode, they just added animation maybe a month or two ago. So it's really not robust, and it barely took me any time to realize what is possible in here. Basically, you can only draw on layers. You only have one animation layer, and that is all you can do with the animation. I'm not even sure if you can change the frames per second, but the drawing experience was really good, and I like the UI. It's gonna go below Adobe Fresco and Procreate. Now on to the meat and potatoes. Let's get to the actual animation apps, and we're gonna start off with FlipaClip. FlipaClip? FlipaClip. So first things first with FlipaClip, I do need to give it its props. It has a really attractive looking UI, and it looks like the buttons are really big for you to touch and navigate the program, but there's also so much space to draw in this application. It makes your iPad feel big. So really nice UI. The drawing experience also feels nice, and it's easy to learn. But there are a lot of cons for FlipaClip. For one, there's ads and a subscription. There's also a big lack of tools. You need to pay a subscription just to have a brush with pressure. I'm not feeling that. There's also no frame duration in FlipaClip, which is pretty crazy for an animation application. You need to duplicate things in here too. I would never do that in an animation application. So I really got to say that this barely even qualifies as a real animation app. And you know what? Before I'm too much of a judge, I am using the free version of FlipaClip. So I want to know, what do you even get in FlipaClip Plus? Let's Google it. I gotta pay for 10 layers? What? Now, as I said previously, let's actually move on to the real animation apps. Please. Let's do Callipeg first. So Callipeg is really good. And one thing I need to say that stands out to me about this application first is I really like the UI. It's very minimal and it does not take up your space. And beyond that, the Callipeg creators are really good with baking things in the UI that help you as an animator. They have these little things where you can scroll in a circle to scroll through your frames. You can also scroll up and down, and it will adapt to where your finger is, which direction you slide it. Really like that part of it. It's also very well documented. You can just hit this little I for information icon at any part of the application, and it will tell you what the icons mean and what they'll do for you. So I really like that because most of these applications really are not documented well at all, inside of the application at least. So yeah, there's also lots of drawing space. That's a really good UI decision. The frames don't, the timeline, it doesn't take up your space. I really like that. So yeah, the animator quality of life in this application is just amazing. They even have so many things, just little shortcuts that you could put in. If you want to color your animation and you want to have all the same frames in an animation layer that are under, you can duplicate your whole animation layer with all the same timings, but you can duplicate it without the drawings. So yeah, they're just really on point with the quality of life in this application. On top of that, it has keyboard shortcuts. It's easy to learn, and it even has a companion application on the phone, which is really nice, where you can use it for shortcuts as well, like scrolling through your animation, undo, things like that. But of course, we want to speak about the actual animation of Callipeg, and how is that? Well, it's amazing. Um, it has professional keyframing. You can customize your keyframing for the exact timing you want in this application. The drawing experience is good, but it is only raster. There's no vector in this application at all. So that's one drawback if you're a vector animator, or if you want to do like logo animations or anything. This isn't for you. This app is for traditional artists who want to get out some to traditionally drawn animation. But there are some cons on this application, of course, which are that you cannot draw off the screen whatsoever, to my knowledge. There's also kind of a weird brush importing system. You can import your brushes in here fine, but like for some reason you need to import them as like the opposite color that you would normally import a brush in other applications. Like they need to be white instead of black, which is a little weird. There's also no curved line tool, which is something I really don't like. They have a line tool, they have a square tool, they have a circle tool, but there's no curved line, which kind of sucks, because what if you just suck at curving your lines with good precision? Yeah, you're just kind of like, they're like, nah, you don't matter in here. Also, the fill tool in here is not really good. They do have a lasso fill, which works totally fine, but I really hope they add a fill tool in here. Oh, one more thing that I really like about Callipeg. They have like this shortcut where you just press with 3 fingers, I believe, and it will bring up like an assist tool. And here you can change your whole like color palette. You can change the color you're using. You can copy, paste, cut, clear a frame. Yeah, just very useful in terms of quality of life. It really gets you going in terms of just getting an animation done. So for Calipeg, I'm going to have to put it in A tier off the bat. Now moving on, let's get to the big dog, Toonsquid. Now, Toonsquid is a really good animation application. As professional keyframing, they just added custom keyframing in this application, so you can customize your timing really well. This application has vector tools. So if you're someone who's into like logo animations or anything like that, you can do that in here. You also can animate text in here. They just added a really good fill tool, which is something that's lacking on most applications on the iPad in general. They just made the color filling way better in Toonsquid, so that's a big plus for it over other applications on the iPad. It also has keyboard shortcuts, which are pretty alright. They can use more options. It has really good compositing app options. And if you don't know what compositing is, it's basically like adding effects to your animation. And this could be like color or other types of visual effects that actually change the animation. Things that you would generally do in After Effects after an animation is already complete, to make it look like TV ready. Toonsquid has a lot of these effects baked directly in Toonsquid for you to edit, and that is an amazing feature itself. Um, it's also just easy to learn, and we also have simple bones in this application, so you can kind of basically just set up a character controller in this application and animate your character by controlling, basically just moving its limbs. I think the bones in this application are pretty simple. I don't know too much about bones, but it probably would be better for piloting a stick figure than an actual character, in my opinion. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But that's just how I see it. Now, Toonsquid, I know everyone likes to hail it as the savior animation for the iPad, but I have my cons with it, man. The drawing experience, I don't like it too much. Like, the drawing experience is far from bad. You can draw in here and you can even paint in here pretty well, but I do not like the base brushes, and I don't think I've ever really even made my own custom brush that I really like in this application. It has a lot of options to customize your brush just like Procreate, but it just really doesn't feel like it comes out feeling as nice. That being said, you can even import like Photoshop brushes in here. This developer is on fire. He's been on fire since since all of last year. He's been on fire. He's making this application crazy. It's basically like desktop software at this point now that they added good fill tools, but there's still problems. The UI is a little big for my taste. Like, it takes up a little bit too much space, and then you also you need to use the sidebar for just about everything if you want more complexity out of the application. And the sidebar takes up quite a bit of space as well. So I'm not too into that, but the UI is big, but it's effective. So good application, really good application overall. Not my favorite to personally use, but I'm going to have to go ahead and throw it at the top of A still, because it is just that good. It's undeniable. Now, moving on to Rough Animator. Rough Animator is like the OG animation application on mobile. It's like this is the Unk app. So basically, the good thing about this app is it's basically feature complete. All of these apps are still going through their changes and getting updates, but Rough Animator rarely gets an update, which is somewhat to its detriment, but it's also everything that's in there works as intended, which is a really good thing. So Rough Animator, it's really basic animation, kind of like what Callipeg does, but simplified. It doesn't have as good of brushes, but it is just really good at getting an animation done. It only has raster brushes. It has a really, well, maybe not really, but a pretty good fill tool as far as what goes on the iPad in these applications, because they're pretty bad. You can also edit multiple frames at once in Rough Animator, which is pretty nice, and you can also color multiple frames at once, which is not something you can't do in any of these other applications. You also have keyboard shortcuts in Rough Animator. They're all right. But the biggest con of Rough Animator is it's just really old. So it has a really old-fashioned UI. It takes up a lot of your screen space, and it's also kind of ugly. You can make it smaller by going into the settings. You can make the user interface smaller, but it kind of just looks weird the smaller you make it, honestly. It looks better bigger. It lacks modern updates. The stabilization, like if you want to draw and you want to stabilize your brushstroke, the stabilization is really slow. Like, it's really weird in this application. There's also not much brush customization here. You can make custom brushes, but they won't look as pretty as these other applications, I can guarantee it. So really, it's an old app, but it's very effective. It also has parity with Adobe Flash and Adobe Animate, so that's a big plus if you want to use an app where you can translate your animations directly into those applications, but you can't bring it back into Rough Animator after you put it in Adobe Flash, from what I understand. I've never used this feature from Rough Animator, but I read it on the frequently asked questions on its website. So let's rank Rough Animator. I'm gonna have to put it in B. Now we got the new contender, Procreate Dreams 2.0, which is really just regular Procreate Dreams as an update. And let's jump into it. So Procreate Dreams is a really, really unique application. It kind of works like it's an animation application that's kind of like a video editor, like Adobe After Effects. So it has two timelines, basically one where you animate like you normally would in any of these other applications, and one where you do all the editing for the animations that you do. So, what's unique about Procreate Dreams? Well, you can draw off the screen, which you can't do in any of these applications that I've mentioned before, except Toonsquid. However, Toonsquid, you can only do it when you're using a vector brush, which isn't all too helpful. Procreate Dreams, you also have amazing playback performance, probably some of the best I've ever seen. Like when you're just playing back your animation, all the effects and everything you have in there, it plays back really smoothly, no hiccups. Probably better than even any desktop software I've used. So that's a big plus for Procreate Dreams. It has really good compositing as well. Now, its compositing options, like the effects that are in Procreate Dreams, are nowhere near as good as the ones in Toonsquid. But what's so nice about Procreate Dreams is you can see your compositing live. In Toonsquid, when you make effects and then you go to animate, it turns your effects off. But in Procreate Dreams, you have the choice to toggle them on or off, and you can just continue animating with your effects because the performance on the effects is so optimized that you can do anything in Procreate Dreams and it won't change how your effects work. And the drawing experience, I gotta say, it's really good. I'm not sure if they recently updated Procreate to feel better, but the drawing in regular Procreate feels pretty good. But I feel like Procreate Dreams has always felt better to drawing than even regular Procreate, in terms of the brushes feel much more responsive, like they're faster or more natural feeling to me at least. So the actual feeling of drawing with a brush in Procreate Dreams is really good, but it is so lacking in drawing tools. There's no quick line, so you can't make perfect shapes like you can in Procreate. You can't make circles all too easily or squares, any of that. So that's a big con. It's also just very early. So the way you navigate this application just is not the best right now. It's not bad though, but you're working against your limitations in this app, which can be something that inspires your creativity. You just need to have the patience for it. So that's the biggest problem with Procreate Dreams. Do you have the patience to work with this application right now or not? It has pretty poor fill tools. They did fix their fill tools from Procreate Dreams version 1, but still not that good because it's only as good as Procreate's fill tool, and it doesn't have that good of a color fill. There's quite a few bugs in Procreate Dreams that you probably will run across. Too many for me to even explain. You just gotta use it. You'll run across a bug, just restart the app though. The one good thing is that Procreate Dreams does save your animations consistently in the background. So even if you run into a bug, it probably won't affect your project at all. Procreate Dreams clutters the screen a lot. Like every timeline clutters the screen in a way that where you have less space to draw in, or even like less space to edit. Like when you're adding effects, sometimes the pop-up to add effects to your animation is so big that you can't see what you're adding the effects to, which is pretty ridiculous. So a lot of the time I use Procreate Dreams in vertical mode, where I actually find that it works much better in terms of like your screen real estate than in its horizontal iPad mode. Dreams has a pretty steep learning curve. It's not that hard of an application. In fact, it's pretty simple, but it works so different than any other animation app that if you're already someone who's used to animation and you hop in here, you're probably going to be like, what is this? But if this is your first application, it'll probably feel natural to you. And then the last con of Procreate Dreams, it has a lot of undocumented features. Like they haven't wrote in the handbook, I don't think, that you could drag down with 3 fingers after you select something to bring up your transformation menu, like copy and paste and everything, just like you do in Procreate. Yeah, they just have not mentioned that that's a feature in certain places. So there's certain people that think you can't even do it in the application. And there's things you could do, like you could double tap out of the flip book to quickly change into a different mode. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that aren't properly documented here. So Procreate Dreams 2 is a little weird of a program to use right now, but it's worth it if it will empower your creations. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Procreate Dreams in B, maybe C, just because you can do animation, like the base level of animation, just as good as you can in most of these other animation apps now in Procreate Dreams 2, but it's just so early that once again you're kind of like working against the limitations that Procreate Dreams 2 is putting against you. Not to mention, most of these applications you can do keyframing. Rough Animator doesn't have keyframing, but all these other apps you can do keyframing. And Procreate Dreams, a big part of it is keyframing, where they have their perform mode where you can do live performances and then make a keyframed animation out of that. However, Procreate Dreams has very simple editing when it comes to keyframing. It's just not there, which is pretty weird as one of the main draws of the application. So I'm going to take away some points for that. Now, I know that review sounds pretty brutal, but I genuinely think that the more you use Procreate Dreams, the more you'll like it if you have the patience to use it, because I think Procreate Dreams is probably my second favorite app on this list. Now, last but not least, can you guys guess what it is? Clip Studio Paint again. But this time we're going to be speaking about Clip Studio Paint EX, which is the more expensive version of Clip Studio Paint where you can animate. Now, you can animate with the regular version of Clip Studio Paint, but they only allow you to add, I think, 24 frames to your timeline, which is preposterous. So never use that. Use Clip Studio Paint EX if you want to animate in Clip Studio. Just know it's expensive. So if you want to get Clip Studio Paint EX, I recommend getting it during one of the sale weeks that they have in the year. They probably have like 3 or 4 a year. So grab it when it's on sale and it's like a fifth of the price. But yeah, let's get into the animation in Clip Studio Paint EX. So Clip Studio Paint EX is really good for animation. It is a steep learning curve though, because this app is built for art. It's not really built for animation. It's more like it was a really, really, really good art application and they built animation into it on top of it being an art application. But it's still really good though, because it has vector tools that are like amazing. I've never seen anything like this, but Clip Studio Paint, you could use vector tools and they'll look just as crisp as your raster tools, like literally one to one. Like they look exactly the same. And that empowers you so much, because then you could use tools like vector cutting on your strokes, so you could draw something out with lines that cross each other, and then you could use your vector cutting tool and you can just erase any lines that overlap, so you can clean up your animation so much easier. You don't need to go specifically erase scraggly lines. That's really nice. You can also edit your lines directly, just move them after you drew them rather than having to redraw every line. So the power of vector is always so important if you can get it in an application, especially if it's good. The vector tools in here are way better than they are in Toonsquid, so it really pans out. But vector isn't the only thing that matters here. Clip Studio Paint offers probably the best drawing experience out of all of these applications. While Procreate Dreams and Adobe Fresco feel a little bit more natural to draw with your Apple Pencil, Clip Studio Paint, it feels like it gives you the most precision when you're drawing. Like I could draw super zoomed out in this application, and I still think I could draw something pretty decent. I don't feel that way with most of these applications. So that's one thing I really like Clip Studio Paint for. The drawing is just so precise, like it feels like a professional workspace. And speaking of, we have so many professional drawing tools, can't even go over all of them. There are 3D models for your reference in this application. You just gotta import them. There's a built-in reference window. You can also do some compositing in this app. Not nearly as much as you can do in Toonsquid or Procreate Dreams, but you can do it. You just gotta set one of your animation layer groups. You just gotta put like effects on there or draw it on. They also have professional keyframing in Clip Studio, and you can technically draw off screen in this application. You just need to set like an overflowed picture. Basically, you need to make a canvas that's bigger than the actual canvas that you'll export when you do your playback, and you can draw off screen. So that's very nice. It makes it one of 2 applications that can use it in a high level on the iPad. Aside from that, there's also an extremely customizable UI. Touch shortcuts and your keyboard shortcuts can also be customized a lot. So that's good. There's a strong community of animators and artists on Clip Studio, and you can download some of their assets directly in the application. No going online and finding things. You can just look things up on the asset store and download them, which is nice because there's even a lot of professionals who use Clip Studio Paint. So it brings it to the next level. And then you can also finally create auto actions, which are, you can, let's say if you wanted to make a new layer and then fill it in blue, you could act those out for the application, act that action out for the application, and then you can save it, and then you can just keep clicking one button to do those 2 steps. So this can get really crazy. I've seen someone create an auto action where it can just fill in all your animation frames like with color. So I don't even know how that makes sense or works in this application, but there's some crazy things that people have done in this application. So it is really good for animation. But despite all the glazing I've done, there's a lot of cons in here too. And mainly it's that Clip Studio Paint is kind of like not built for animation. The UI is built for art. So even though you can do a bunch of customization to make Clip Studio Paint look good for your animation, it takes a lot of work. It's built for art. It still won't look amazing. That's actually why they're building the Clip Studio Paint Simple mode that I brought up earlier in this video. It's because Clip Studio Paint looks like it's built for the computer, and it functions like it's built for the computer. Like, we didn't even have a brush slider like Procreate for like tons of years on Clip Studio Paint. We just got that like last year. So it's little things like that can be annoying to a tablet user, but if you just bust out a keyboard and use Clip Studio Paint on your iPad, it's elite. The animation timeline is also in a pretty inconvenient place. Like, it can only dock to the bottom of your screen. You can move it and drag it anywhere, but it's a little out there. I don't like how the animation timeline looks in Clip Studio Paint, which is a pretty big problem because you gotta always use the animation timeline if you're animating, but it's worth it for the drawing experience. And that's about all I could say on Clip Studio Paint. It's really good. It's even professional level software. Like, a lot of people in the Japanese anime industry, I think this is their preferred animation application. So you have a professional animation application on the iPad right there. It's just expensive and it is subscription based. I'm going to go ahead and put Clip Studio Paint in S, actually. I feel like I should put it in A, but I think it's just a little bit above all of these applications. So I'll put it in S. So let's just do a quick recap of every animation app that we went over today in the most simple form. Procreate animation, very simple, good for storyboarding. Fresco animation, it's kind of like real animation, pretty good for storyboarding, but not worth it overall because it gets annoying on longer projects. Clip Studio Paint simple mode, it's very simple. You only want to make very like short GIF animations in here, if anything. FlipaClip, it's good for beginners. I wouldn't use it. Callipeg, really good for traditional animators. Really, really good. Toonsquid, it's like the best of all of these things, like an amalgamation of all of them. It's like if you took Adobe Flash and Procreate and threw them together and then made them even better. And it just keeps getting better with pretty quick updates. Rough Animator, really good traditional app, feature complete, but it looks a little old. Procreate Dreams, it's a little early, a lot of potential. If it's your cup of tea, you should use it. You can make some really pretty stuff in here compared to everything else. Clip Studio Paint EX, it's a hard learning curve, but it's worth it, and you can probably make the best art you'll make in any of these applications in here, aside from Procreate Dreams. So yeah guys, thanks for watching this far. These are the final rankings, but let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my rankings, if there's any features I missed, or if there's anything you would like to add to the conversation. I appreciate you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please hit a like and subscribe.